Yo, welcome back to the 4 Wide Fantasy Football Podcast. We are here yet again to talk about the Super Bowl and our 2024 way too early preview, guys. Episode 22. We've gone a full football season, guys. We made it. Mama, we made it. And I just want to say this. If you're watching on YouTube, you might be wondering, who's that new handsome guy you guys have with you? Guys, listen, empty backfield, full spread formation. We have a new friend on here that we want to introduce, Mr. Ross Sawyer himself from Indianapolis, Indiana. Ross,
let's go.
Why don't you tell our listeners who you are and why you've been invited to the podcast today?
Absolutely. What up, gents? It's good to be here. Thanks for the invite. You may be noticing that I'm wearing a little Kansas City red and yellow there. That's right.
Yellow.
I believe the boys wanted to talk some Super Bowl, and I am happy to do that, although I may not be praising Tom Brady as much as Olu wants me to. We're talking about Mahomes today, baby. But I've played fantasy football for way too long, spent way too many hours doing research on it. I love Superflex. I love the draft. I love Dynasty, and specifically love the Chiefs. And so a little bit about me. I am a curse to my own team, unfortunately. Every time I go to an away game, we lose.
Dude.
You guys remember that Andrew Luck game where Donald Brown is fumbling on the 1 yard line? The playoff game.
I remember that one.
I got tickets to that game. We're up 27 points at halftime. I'm standing up in Indianapolis Colts country, clapping, turning around, like making eye contact with all the fans around me. And Andrew Luck gets that fumble, takes it in. They storm back. Alex Smith, all of the Jamal Charles gets a concussion, all of it. And people are spilling beers on me, like doing all sorts. It was crazy.
So wait, you must have been in the Tampa Super Bowl then. You must have been in Tampa.
Oh my gosh.
The Tampa Bay Super Bowl, I was not there, but you weren't either. So
because they lost. So I was like, maybe you were there.
You know,
be quiet.
They did take an L on that one. But I was not at that game. I was, however, at the Colts game, what was that, last year? And then I went to the Packers game this year. Every time I go see my team play in person at an away game, it's an L.
Wait, so basically you travel to those cities to watch them play?
I pay good money, and they tend to disappoint me in person.
Wow.
So, okay. But they didn't disappoint me last Sunday, Olu.
Oh, that's all that matters.
Let's keep going. Ross, it's great to have you. Just so you know, so Ross went to college, I believe, with Shed at University of Kansas.
Right.
Will and I have known Ross for years through our jobs as ministers. And we've known Ross seeing him at conferences and connecting and then but all 5 of us, for that matter, are all in the same Dynasty League, which has been very exciting. So, you know, obviously Ross being a Kansas City fan, we said, hey, if the Chiefs win, we've got to have Ross on the podcast. It's only right. But anyways, let's keep it moving with 1 minute of shine. I believe, Shed, you're up, man.
Yeah, so what's interesting is Kansas City, they're only going to get better from here on out. I feel sorry for the league because Kansas City is going to get better, and this was a year for the league to really beat them. This was to consider their bad year, right? But the league could not capitalize on what the Chiefs were this year. The offense was struggling. The receivers were dropping balls. There was rumblings about Kelce getting old. Mahomes had a quote-unquote down year. If there was a year to take advantage of the Chiefs, this was it, right? But then the team is so good when the money's on the line, when it really mattered, the team stepped up and it ultimately won. Miami out. Buffalo out. Number 1, Baltimore out. San Francisco out. Next year, they will fix their wide receiver problem. They will upgrade the O-line, and the defense will be even that much better. Kansas City Chiefs right now should be the pick to win it all right now. Again, if you have anybody else, don't take them. The Chiefs are set and poised to win moving forward.
Talk about it, Shed.
Yeah, and it's wild to think that you said this was the year to beat them when that was probably the narrative going into last season when they lost Tyreek Hill. And they literally beat all the teams that we thought at one point in time this season were probably the best team in the league. But anyways, Olu, you wanted to respond to Shed's 1 minute of shine?
Yeah, I want to respond because he's just saying this the year to beat them. This is a down year. They've since last year they've had one of the best defense in NFL. Or the best defense. They have the best cornerback duos, McDuffie and Snid. No one can touch those guys. They're impressive.
Well,
They erased Brandon Ayuk. They're amazing tandem. They have we want to talk about the D line. We want to talk about D tackle. We want to talk about that linebacker. They have an incredible defense. So if we say they have a bad team, it's not true. It's false. They have one of the best defense with the best defensive coordinator. It is absolutely not true. And they still have one of the greatest tight end in NFL history. They have one of the best rookie this year in wide receiver. They have one of the best running back in the NFL right now. What are we talking? They have one of the best O-line. What are we talking about?
well,
Those
the
last
point was-
two things are definitely not true.
Wait, am I wrong, Russ? Am I wrong?
Pacheco is not considered one of the best
Pacheco-
running backs.
Checo is amazing, and he's going to have a shelf life of like 3 years. That's why it's a good time to sell. But the O-line, it's great, but it's not the best. I would say that's Detroit.
Right. No, I didn't say the best O-line. They have a great O-line.
Yeah, but you know what? We can keep it moving. Let's keep it moving though for now. I mean, Olu, that you said some relative stuff, but people have other thoughts. But we got to keep moving for our 1 minute of shine though.
It's down here.
Olu, why don't you do your 1 minute of shine? Maybe you could talk about Kansas City if you'd like to.
Yeah, thank you. So my moment of shine is listen. Greatness is greatness. Greatness cannot be denied. Patrick Mahomes is great. Period. Patrick Mahomes is cut from the same cloth as Brady. Period. They are the same person. Patrick Mahomes has the ball. You're dead. You know this. Everybody knows this. He has the ball last. Overtime rules, the new overtime rule. You score 3 and you're giving the ball back to Patrick Mahomes. Game's over. Like, what are we doing? So I want to give Patrick Mahomes his flowers. His game, he's a shine. People think I hate on him. I don't. I've always said this. Patrick Mahomes is great. There's nobody in the league like him. He's head and shoulders far ahead of everybody. Okay, in the league right now. So he gets the 1 minute of shine. And now you want to give Patrick Mahomes a great, solid O-line. It's over. It's killing everybody. You know what I'm saying? So I just think nobody can get the job done. I just feel like his contemporaries right now don't have the mental skill set to keep up with him and just the fortitude, and he's just cut from a different cloth. Patrick Mahomes gets my 1 minute of shine.
Speaking of which, I want to respond to your 1 minute of shine. I think, Olu, we have you on record for saying Kansas City was one and done. Kansas City would not win on the road against Buffalo. Kansas City would get blown out by Baltimore. And then Kansas City would lose to San Francisco. Now you're giving Mahomes his flowers. Would you like to issue a formal apology to Patrick Mahomes for doubting him every single week of the playoffs?
No.
You can apologize to me too. I'll take it.
I would like to request a formal apology to me from Mahomes, from Josh Allen, from Lamar, from Shanahan. They all need to apologize to me because I held them higher than they ought to be held. That was my bad.
He really thought about this ahead of time.
No, actually didn't. I just thought about it now. They need to apologize to me. I thought Lamar has changed the corner. Remember, I gave Lamar his flowers a while, during the season. If he keeps playing the way he's playing, like everybody, it's scary. But Lamar reverted back to the Lamar of old. He was afraid of the moment, which is sad to me because we thought he actually turned the corner. Josh Allen just does Josh Allen things. I thought it was who with everyone thinks he is. He's not. I gave them way too much credit. And by far doing, Mahomes has always been here for me, right? Amongst his contemporaries. I thought those guys have at least elevated to this point. We saw that they didn't. So which is for me is like, man, I actually thought you guys would elevate to the level of somewhat of this man, but they haven't. They didn't. So, it is what it is.
Very good. We're going to move on to Will. I just want to say in response to Olu, basically, it wasn't that Mahomes was great. It was that the other guys just weren't that good. Is basically what he's saying. But
No, well,
anyways,
that's fact, though. That's facts. That's fact. Even though Mahomes is cut from the same cloth as Brady, he's not the same material. He's not molded the same way. So let's not get
of
carried
course
away.
not. Of course not. But we're going to have Will go because we got to keep it moving.
Cut from the same cloth, not shaped from the same mold. Okay. Interesting discrepancies there.
That's what
Here, hold on. Here's my 1 minute of shine. It's just that life is not fair as a football fan. Taylor Swift became a football fan 3 months ago because of her romantic interests, and her team won a Super Bowl the first season. For 80% of the rest of us, we've been waiting our whole lives. I'm a Titans fan. My life has been defined by misery. Shed is a Vikings fan. Okay, they're cursed when it comes to the playoffs and the Super Bowl. She becomes a fan of the sport 3 months ago, as far as we know, and already has a Super Bowl from her team. So my 1 minute to shine is a complaint that it is just not fair. We've been waiting our lives. Our whole lives. You can't become a fan 3 months prior and already get a Super Bowl. Makes no sense. That's all I got to say.
I'm just going to say from my 1 minute of shine, I appreciate Will Lambert for keeping his 1 minute of shine to 1 minute. That's all I got to say.
Always.
I will one-up you and keep mine to 20 seconds. All right, so here we have a great episode for you. What we're going to do is we are going to share our Super Bowl reactions and fantasy implications for the 2024 season. We are going to go through over the next few weeks some of the top free agents because free agency opens on March 13th. We are recording this on, February 13th? So in 1 month's time, free agency opens up. The new league year has started. So we are going to be discussing the top 5 free agent wide receivers today. And then after that, what we're going to do is we are going to before we talk about the free agents, we are going to talk about our best ball lineups because that's all done now. Then we'll do the free agents. And then what we'll do is we'll each give a way too early 2024 bold prediction. So with that said, let's talk about the Super Bowl, guys. Very exciting game. I believe it might have been for the second time in history the Super Bowl went to overtime. And I don't think anybody quite understood what the overtime rules were. Okay. But obviously going into it, really, let's just be honest, no surprises. Kansas City, San Francisco, the 2 best teams in the league. Many people had Vegas had San Francisco favored by 2 points, but it was Kansas City who came out on top. Thanks to Patrick Mahomes throwing a touchdown to a man from the illustrious University of Georgia. So with that said, let's talk briefly. Kansas City 25, San Francisco 22. Let's talk about our reactions to the Super Bowl. Ross, you could go first, man.
Absolutely. Yeah, it was a beautiful game. It was a little confusing in overtime for sure, but one of my favorite parts of the Super Bowl is that Travis Kelce still has it. He's got that indescribable thing. He's got the ability to overcome. A lot of people were talking about his age this year. He's 35. The signs of where he missed that first game, if you guys remember, against Detroit, where all the spiraling started happening for the season. They were distracted by he was distracted by his billionaire girlfriend, which is an interesting thing to say. But this dude rested in week 18. He gave up his streak of 1,000-yard seasons in a row just so he could be ready for the playoffs. And what did he do? He caught 32 out of 37 targets in the playoffs for 355 yards, 3 touchdowns in 4 games. The dude still has it. You can say whatever you want about Taylor Swift, her feeling 22. This is episode 22, so I got to talk about Kelce. But I'm going to tell you, don't draft Travis Kelce this year. This is going to boost his draft stock. People are going to remember this version of Travis Kelce. And for these Chiefs, it's all about January and February. Redraft, he's being talked about in the second round. Don't do it. Take somebody like Garrett Wilson instead.
You know, you made an interesting point about how he came out of the season slow. Obviously, we can't forget didn't he like hyperextend his knee in the preseason or something like that? But I noticed as soon as the season started, he came out with no beard and some creepy mustache. But as soon as he grew his beard back, we saw Travis Kelce come back. So I think it has to do with not the knee, but the beard. But yeah, he definitely still had it. That is for sure. Olu, what do you want to say in response to that, man?
So my response to that is, I'm not going to lie, because, Travis Kelce actually got injured at a training camp before the season started. So I was like, oh, we got him. And then he re-injured early in the year, and he was playing crap. I was like, and then there was one, okay, I probably shouldn't say this publicly. Anyway, I won't say it. So anyway, he re-injured himself, and I was like, okay. And he was playing badly. And I was like, age cut up to him. Yes. And then, I was so happy. And then they got to the playoffs, right? And then the first game, was it the first game? Yeah, it was the first game. He was dropping the balls and it wasn't doing well. And then Mahomes was taking a shot and he threw it. And Kelce made this crazy catch, never looked back since then. And I was like, oh, I still got it. So yeah, you're absolutely correct. It still got it. But I don't know how much of he has it when it's needed. I don't know if he can go 17 games with that level of play. So that'll be left to see.
So, Ross brought up a good point. Prior to the season, he had 7 straight seasons with 1,000 yards. He could have played the final week of the season. And he finished the season with 984 yards. So he could have had another 1,000 yards, but it's obvious to him that winning a championship and resting is more important. And then he came in the playoffs. He balled out. Like, Travis Kelce is still legitimate. He's still I would say, probably a top 3 tight end in fantasy football. I mean, why not? Maybe probably top 2, because Mark Andrews might have Isaiah Likely cutting into his opportunities. TJ Hawkinson is injured. So it's him and Laporta up at top, but we could see something great happen here.
No, we do have to factor in his age, though. We cannot not factor. He will be 35 years old.
Yeah, the age is the biggest thing. I actually think Kittle has a shot at being a better fantasy tight end in the regular season next year because he's got youth on his side.
Yeah.
Kittle is so volatile, though. Like, Kittle is volatile. He only had, 2 yards or 2 catches in the Super Bowl?
Yeah.
Right. But yeah, Super Bowl stats are oftentimes a bit skewed one way or the other, right? It's not a good representation of what you do over the course of a season. He is volatile, but he had, what did he have? Like 15 yards per catch this year, some crazy and yak numbers, all that. So he's still got a lot of juice left.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's feast or famine. He seems to get 3 touchdowns in one game and then no catches the next game. I think he had one catch for 1 yard, was it, in the Super Bowl?
That's the thing about Kittle. I mean, that's tough. It's tough to trust him.
It's not him. It's not like you throw him the ball and he's dropping it or not catching it. It's not him.
It's their scheme.
7 games this season out of the top 20 tight ends. 7 games this season where he ranked outside of the top 20.
Every time, I'll talk about it. Every time the ball touches Kittle's hand, he runs through something, he gets a first down, he gets yak, or scores a touchdown. So if that's the case, why won't you feature? I'm going to talk about that, Matt.
Why don't we keep it moving? Let's keep it moving. Super Bowl reaction.
A lot of tight ends.
You're next, man.
Yeah, so, I feel like the true MVPs for the Super Bowl are the defensive coordinators. Yes, congratulations to the back-to-back Kansas City Chiefs for a Super Bowl win. What a great game. Both teams played extremely well. And yes, Mahomes was an MVP. You give him his flowers. Reed gets some love, and Kelce in the defense as well. But the MVPs of the Super Bowl are both of the defensive coordinators. Steve Spagnuolo and Steve Wilkes gave fits to the offensive. Second half, 49ers only scored 12 points. Props to Spagnuolo. First half, Wilkes, I think, held Kansas City to only 3 points. And remember, the final score in regulation was in the teens before going to overtime. Both teams struggled to move the ball. They eventually started moving it, but you can tell it was a nip and tuck, a very defensive game. And the fact that it was even this going into overtime, a fairly low scoring game, it just shows how great the defenses are and show it was a great game plan and great call on both sides of the ball. I think both these coach could potentially, not this year, but in the future, be employed for head coaching jobs. But I feel like both of them need more credit than what's given out there. So props to them.
Yeah, I've been a big Steve Spagnuolo fan since he was the defensive coordinator for the Giants for obvious reasons. But yeah, the defense has showed out. I mean, Kansas City is known for having an amazing offense, but this year it was almost as if the defense was really in the more of the headlines for Kansas City.
Absolutely.
Well, and that's the thing, is that going into it, we didn't see this from the defense. We didn't see the defense like this. And they got better because remember, they're young. They got better as the year went on. Everything was clicking at the exact right time. Offense didn't drop balls. The defense came together. Chris Jones, pay that man. He is the anchor of pay that man. He's going to be the anchor of the defense. Corners are legit. Things are looking good moving forward.
Wait, when you said we didn't see this, what do you mean? From when didn't we see it? Like, at what point didn't we see this?
At what point we didn't see it? Like, I mean, going into the season, we didn't think they were going to have this type of defense because they were young.
Yes, we did.
We
knew that since
no,
last
we didn't.
No, not top three.
No, there was nobody drafting Kansas City's defense. If you still draft defenses in fantasy football, nobody was drafting Kansas City's in like the top five.
Can I tell you how? Can I tell you how we knew? Last year they drafted, like their draft was amazing. They drafted young defensive players that played really, really well, and everyone was saying that's just the first year. By the second year, they're going to be phenomenal because they played well in their rookie year. That's what we're seeing. People saw that coming. I mean, Russ would know.
So I was having conversations with my friends about this last year, that the Super Bowl showed promise for this year, but the defense was secondary to the offense all last year. No doubt about it. They showed promise in the playoffs enough to make us wonder if they would be top 10 this year. A lot of people were thinking that they could be top 10, but top 3, this is beyond even our best expectations. Spags hasn't had a defense like this since his days in New York.
What I wanted to say real quick about the defensive coordinators is what I'm so impressed by with San Francisco on the defensive side is their D coordinators keep getting hired away. Like Saleh hired by the Jets, and then he was replaced by DeMeco Ryans, correct? To the Texans. And then you have Steve Wilkes come over. He was the interim coach for the Panthers. He comes over. This is his first year as their D coordinator in San Francisco. And it's like year after year, it doesn't matter who the coordinator is, they just produce. So there's something about the scheme. I almost wonder there's got to be some sort of like how Dick LeBeau was in his last few years. There's got to be someone there in San Francisco that is like this defensive consultant or something like that, because they just keep putting out top 5 defenses even as the coordinators get hired, which is very difficult to do, right? We just saw the Eagles fall apart, losing both of their coordinators, but especially the defensive side of the ball. So something about San Francisco is just very impressive when it comes to
San Francisco. I mean, when you hit... go ahead, Olu.
To be fair, it's kind of hard to mess up when you have Nick Bosa, Greenlaw, Fred Warner.
Yes, very true.
Guys. It's kind of hard to mess that
right,
up.
And that's what I was going to say. They hit on guys like Bosa, Warner, but then it's wild because then they all of a sudden they bring in guys who were highly rated, like Chase Young, who is competent, who's good, but he's just a rotational player for them. They bring in a guy like Cleveland Farrell. Remember him? He was considered a bust, even though he was drafted in the top 5 out of Clemson. But they have an exceptional defense. But let's keep it moving. I think who's next? Is it Olu? Olu, is it your reaction?
Olu.
I'm next. So for me, I would say if you play with your food long enough, right, and you play when it falls on the floor, you're gonna go hungry. That's what happened to the 49ers. They were playing with their food. They had the game. They had the defense had the game wrapped up. You cannot. And I wrote something. I posted something on social media. I said something, and it sounded like duh, but it's not duh. If it sounds silly, but it's true. If you don't, and I said that if 49ers doesn't score points, they will lose this game. At some point, you can only hold Patrick Mahomes back for so long. At some point, he has and Andy Reid, they will figure something out. You had them on the ropes. You did not put up points. You stayed at 10 points. They gave the ball time after time after time. You didn't score much points. You got an INT. You didn't score points. You gave the ball right back. You didn't score points. You get down the field. You kick three. You cannot win against these guys with 3 points. And I feel like 49ers were like little kids playing with their food. Okay. And they just didn't want to eat it until, the lunchtime was over and you have to pack up. So that's what happened with them. And another thing for me was I thought going into this game, there's two ways you can win this game, this ball game. First of all, you cannot win this ball game passing the ball to Ayuk and to Ayuk at least. Ayuk and Debo. Ayuk is going to be erased by Snid easily. The key to this game was Judge Kittle. Judge Kittle did not get the ball that much. He did it. Why wouldn't you pass the ball to your biggest mismatch in this game? Like he literally is the biggest mismatch, and this man and the game was not ran through him. So I feel like Shanahan lost this game, like he does. Yeah, I think he lost this game. Brock Purdy. Anyway, I'll get to that. But go ahead.
Shade at Shanahan, huh?
So, yeah, I'm going to say something about Shanahan in a minute for my 1 minute to shine. But I think what it was, Olu, is we do have to put some of the blame on Brock Purdy. And it's just because he's young. So this is what I've been saying, right? This is why for months I have been hesitant to crown him because I've been saying, can we just see him play 50 games? And what we saw in the Super Bowl is that once the system falls apart, once the game plan falls apart, because we know what Shanahan does. He has the first 15 plays scripted. Okay, that's what he does. He goes into every game, first 15 plays, he's going to run them no matter what happens. And then after that, he will adapt based on what he sees. But Purdy's just not there yet. Okay, he's not able to adapt quickly. He's not able to process that data for the first 3 quarters and change in the fourth quarter like Mahomes can. And he does not yet have the killer instinct. He doesn't have that. He doesn't have the instinct to put the other team away, but he's young. I think he can get there, but we have been way too early to crown him. That's what I've been saying for months.
And here's my response to that. What I think is this. I mean, overtime showed who each of these guys were. There are game managers and there are game changers. We know this. Purdy is a game manager. We saw that in overtime. Mahomes, he is going to win. He's a game changer. They send a blitz. He runs. They play man. He figures it out. Play zone. He figures it out. He wasn't going to be stopped. Didn't matter what down it was. Didn't matter what the distance was. We saw them get behind the sticks. He took over. He made it happen. He's a game changer. Purdy's not that guy. And so coming into the game, yeah, San Francisco's favored. But the reality is Patrick Mahomes is the X factor. San Francisco has better skill players. Kansas City has Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter. At this stage, you want the quarterback, and he rose to the occasion and won the game. But anyways, Olu, you want to say something?
Yeah, I when the game ended, I was ready to crucify Brock Purdy with all the slander he can get. But then I thought about it and I watched it. No, I thought about it and I reconsidered because Brock Purdy, yes, we cannot crown him. He's not the chosen one. He's not the second coming of, one of those low picks that become great. He's not that yet. He's doing the best. He has overachieved. We can all agree. He's doing the best with the skill set that he has. Okay, so but also if you look, he made some throws that could have worked out. He made a really beautiful throw to Ayuk. Ayuk stopped running, couldn't find the ball. Like he stopped. He threw a dime. He threw a couple of dimes. There was one he threw to Debo. Debo also couldn't get it. So I think Debo couldn't get it, and also that was a heck of a defense, to be honest. Like it was. Ayuk could no longer be. Ayuk was exposed. He could no longer be schemed open because you're playing the top elite corner. So I feel like Brock Purdy gets a little credit. I feel like the blame goes on Shanahan because I only saw one creativity in which they score. I didn't see the offensive genius that's Shanahan. I didn't see I didn't see screens. There were most of the screens. The one screen that was called was McCaffrey running in 2nd and 27. That was the one screen that I saw with them. The Kansas City Chiefs get thrown screens all day. Receiver screens, tight end screens, running back screens, McCannon, Pacheco. And this is with Mahomes. They kept putting Brock Purdy on shotgun. Why? Like save this, like help him. You have weapons. Doing empty sets. Like why are we doing multiple empty sets with Brock Purdy all day long in the Super Bowl? Like help him. Do. So I feel like that was a Shanahan. I thought Shanahan froze. If he got punched in the mouth, he had the plan coming into the game. Like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan till they get punched in the mouth. He's gotten punched in the mouth, and then he froze as usual. His script no longer works. There was a throw where I think Ayuk was wide open, but no one was blocking Chris Jones. He ran through. I don't know if you guys remember that play, but anyway, he ran
Yes.
through and blocked. You do not block Chris Jones. Are you kidding me? Anyway,
Yeah. We're
It's
going
a
to
good
move on to
idea.
Will in just a second. I just want to emphasize that I know Olu said McKinnon, but I heard Nick Cannon, and I just thought about Nick Cannon play. Anyways, Will, go. Your turn, man.
next person.
All right. Here's my reaction. Kyle Shanahan. Fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you. Fool me 3 times, you might be cursed. This man is cursed. First, as an offensive coordinator, he has the 28-3 game, Falcons Patriots. Then 4 years ago, 10-point lead, double-digit lead against these same Chiefs. He blows it. They lose the game, lose the Super Bowl. And then again, 2 nights ago, blows a 10-point lead to the Chiefs yet again. I don't know what it is, Kyle. I don't know what needs to change, but something in the psyche is cursed. Something
Mm.
in your game plan is cursed. You have all the pieces, you have everything you need, but you got to figure out how to put it all together on the biggest stage. I wish success for you, but you have a lot of room to go to correct the narrative about you. You got a lot of work ahead of you to change this stereotype now.
Yep, absolutely. Olu, do you want to respond to that quickly?
Yeah. Okay. I would. So I thought about it. I thought Shanahan's cursed or whatever, and I thought about it. He needs his quarterback. He hasn't had one yet. That's all it is. It wasn't Matt Ryan. It's not Jimmy Shaw. Isn't Jimmy G? It's not Trey Lance. It's sure not Brock Purdy. He needs is Patrick Mahomes. Andy Reid went through the exact same thing. He
Trey
lost
Lance.
Trey Lance. Yeah, yeah, that's what I said, right? Yeah, okay. So Andy Reid did went to multiple. He lost multiple Super Bowls. He lost not multiple, one Super Bowl, multiple NFC. When he finally got his quarterback, he's dominated. I think when Shanahan gets his quarterback that can help him, then he will start winning. He just doesn't have that quarterback yet. That quarterback play last Sunday was a huge mismatch, easily.
Like I'm not gonna knock Shanahan because I'm Purdy because he lost to Mahomes. Like, okay, everyone's gonna lose to Mahomes, right? Like
Not Brady.
Mahomes is legit. Shanahan has his quarterback. This was a game of inches, right? This game could have gone either way. So I'm not gonna be throwing stones at Purdy and say Purdy didn't do a good job. Now, one thing I will say Shanahan could have done was in the third quarter, he got away from running the ball with McCaffrey, and I feel like that really hurt them. Then later on in the
Yeah.
fourth quarter, he picked it up. But I do remember, Olu, you were saying that during that time that Purdy couldn't deliver the ball, couldn't close the deal. So there is some truth to that. He's still young, but Shanahan has his guy, and Purdy's still legit. Go ahead, Ross. You got something to say?
Yeah, real quick on this. I think Shanny's become the new Andy Reid in my mind. Olu was talking about that a little bit, but I do think that he allowed Spagnuolo to influence his play calling too much. If you remember, Kittle and McCaffrey started staying in because he didn't trust the line instead of throwing in the flats like Green Bay did earlier in the year, where they burnt us constantly when we got pressure. There was always someone in the flats. They began to protect, to try to take those deeper shots to go to Debo and Ayuk, and it just backfired. All of a sudden, the pressure was just collapsing in on Purdy, and he's a small guy. Seeing over that line is hard for him.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Let's go. Olu, why don't you comment, then we'll move on.
Okay. You're saying Brock Purdy is a guy and he did a good job. He's young. If you cannot win with the way the defense played, with the weapons you have, are you ever going to win a Super Bowl? Because what like you want a better defense play than what you had on Sunday? I don't think you get much better than that. They shut it down. Do you want you're not going to get running back better than McCaffrey? You're not going to get left tackle better than Trey. But anyway, let's move on.
Yeah. All right, let's keep it moving. I thought Olu was going to talk a little longer, so I was in the middle of drinking my water. I almost spit it out. But what I'm going to say, last thing I'll say, and mine will be very brief, as I react to the Super Bowl. I mean, I think it's interesting because let me ask you guys this question. How many weeks do you think during the regular season Patrick Mahomes finished within the top 5 of fantasy quarterbacks?
Not a lot.
Without looking at it, I'll say 4.
Maybe 3.
I'll say
Probably
1.
Or none.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy?
Mm-hmm.
A guy who has 3 Super Bowl MVPs is on record pace.
No.
And we think he only had, the most of us thinks he had 4 weeks in the top 5. Patrick Mahomes finished twice in the top 5 of fantasy scorers.
Twice.
We consider once was number 1 and once was number 5. We consider this to be a down year for Patrick Mahomes. He legitimately had his worst season as a starter. It would, when he started every single game. The only season that he threw for less yards or less touchdowns was a season that he didn't even play every single game due to injury. This was a down year, and even in a down year, he's a Super Bowl MVP. Now, I still think, though, the team will get better because the reality is, as the season went on, guess who they started to involve more and more? Rashee Rice. Guess who they decided to use less and less? Kadarius Toney. So I think the team will get better. They'll probably add another receiver, maybe a veteran. If they bring in a veteran, Lord have mercy. We're going to be talking about some of the top free agents available. But if they bring in a veteran or even draft another young receiver, because Sky Moore hasn't really worked out for them, this team, it's going to be good. But my reaction is just I think Mahomes, take him within the I still think he's going to be a top 5 fantasy quarterback next season. But anyways, you guys want to respond to that briefly, and then we got to move on. Why don't Olu, you go first, man?
I disagree with you guys. You guys keep saying, "Oh, Mahomes down here." I think Mahomes last year and this year, it's probably the most dangerous Mahomes we've seen in the league this year. The reason why is because Mahomes has finally figured it out. He's no longer just been, "Oh, I'm gonna drop bombs all day long." He's really dissecting teams, short passes, short passes, short passes, and boom, MVS got the ball, touchdown. He doesn't need to throw the ball 50 million times, stats to Tyreek Hill. He's taking his time and dissecting and being cerebral. That's very Brady-esque because we know when Brady was in New England, especially, he wasn't like top anything in fantasy. However, he was top in efficiency. That's how Mahomes is been operating the last 2 years, and I think that's a dangerous Mahomes. I'm just
Well,
saying he doesn't need to be a top fantasy player at all, but he's extremely. Nobody has been more efficient than him this year, at all.
well,
Sorry.
the thing about Mahomes is with his talent. I mean, here's the thing. Last season, he threw for 5,200 yards. This past season, he threw for 4,200 yards. So he threw for a
Okay, that's
thousand less yards. He threw more interceptions this past year than he ever has in any season. So when I say it was a down year, absolutely it was a down year. Considering what he did in 2023 when he was league MVP, or 2022 when he was league MVP, he threw for 1,000 less yards, 14 less touchdowns, and one more interception. Yeah, it was a down year. I mean, that's the reality of it.
I see a dangerous Mahomes. I see a really dangerous Mahomes
Yeah, well,
now
the
with
underneath
the way he.
methodical stuff is fine, but he's got an arm. He's a playmaker. He wants to get creative. He wants to get. If you're throwing the underneath stuff, that's fine if you're throwing from the pocket. But with his skill set to get out of the pocket, or create plays, going down the field is what you want. And so I think, he could kill you anyway. That's the thing about him. He showed us this year he could kill you both ways. But I think he spoils us, man. Ultimately, I think he spoils us. But why don't we just keep on moving? Okay, we're gonna go to the next segment. At the beginning of the playoffs, your four wide fantasy football podcasters did a best ball contest where we selected one player from any of the playoff teams, only one player per team, and we kept a running tally. So each week, obviously, players are dropping out, and by the end of it, you had a maximum during the Super Bowl. You were playing a maximum of two players, and so at the end of the season, the final scores are Olu came in last place. Now it's wild because Olu won our regular season fantasy game, but in the playoffs he came in last place. Ultimately, because he was hating on Kansas City and didn't pick anybody in the Kansas City lineup,
That's
so that came back and bit him in the butt.
yeah. I didn't demand a recount, to be honest.
Olu, you didn't play anybody on Kansas City's roster.
I know. I was hating.
So Olu finished in last with 255.9 points.
Now a dynasty league, I knew everything in me said you should draft Rashid Rice. I was like, no, I'm not. It's not going to do well.
I'm glad you didn't.
Yeah, it was Cedric Tillman was definitely a better pick.
So ultimately, Olu finished with 255.9 points. Ultimately, because all he had was CMC going into the Super Bowl. After that, Will finished in third place with 284 points. Will went into the Super Bowl with CMC and Travis Kelce. After that, Shed beat Will by just 0.7 points. He had 284.7 points. Shed went into the Super Bowl with CMC and Rashee Rice. And then I came out on top with 323.9 points. Do you guys have anything you'd like to say in response to our best ball contest at all? Recount?
I would say it's pretty clear. It's pretty clear who the Mahomes of this league is. So
No, because I actually came in, I think, third during our. So Ross, one thing that was so cool, I don't know if you followed us during the.
exactly, you had a down regular season and you dominated the
There it
playoffs.
is.
And then, yes, you took care of business.
But Olu dominated. The King of Zamunda dominated during the regular season during our weekly Thursday night football draft. But we've got to think of
So he might be Lamar.
the Josh Allen. We might need to think about consequences because we're gonna have to do something similar next year with the Thursday night football draft, the single game mock. We just got to think of consequences. So maybe think about that as we go through the offseason. But let's move on. Okay, so the new league year will be starting in just a month, March 13th.
Oh, so soon.
Yeah, already. Isn't that crazy? March 13th, free agency opens up. The salary cap will be increasing like it always does, and it will be a big spending spree.
Yeah.
Today, what we're going to do is we're going to discuss the top 5 free agent wide receivers. Wide receivers make bank. Today we're going to discuss briefly T. Higgins, Michael Pittman Jr., Mike Evans, Hollywood Brown, and Calvin Ridley. So first up, guys, let's talk about T. Higgins, 24 years old, 4-year vet. This past season, he played in 12 games, 42 receptions, 656 yards, 5 touchdowns. Obviously, he was injured. Joe Burrow was injured. So I don't think those numbers really speak to who he is. But in the offseason, his projected value, the projected value of the contract he will sign will be 4 years, $66.3 million with 16.5 guaranteed. He's projected to sign the tag, but a lot of these guys today, they don't want the tag. So ultimately, again, he's projected to sign a 4-year, $66.3 million contract. Where? We don't know. But what do you guys think about T. Higgins going into the off season? Yeah, Will.
Okay, I was just going to give you all real quick as we start this discussion, the teams with the most cap space going into this offseason. So number 1 is the Commanders with $73 million, Titans at $71 million, Texans with $69 million, Patriots, Colts, Bengals, Lions, Buccaneers, Bears, Cardinals. So those are the top, whatever it was, 9, 10. The Bengals have $59 million in cap space.
Yes.
The challenge is they need to pay Jamar.
You got to pay Jamar Chase.
Probably now. I don't think he's going to want to wait another year and play on his rookie deal another year. So I think they have to pay Jamar, give him something long-term now. And then my prediction is that T. Higgins will get the tag, although I would love to see him go somewhere else and be a wide receiver 1. Like I imagine T. Higgins on the Texans, and then you've got Nico Collins and Tank Dell rounding out the top 3. That would be amazing.
Be nice.
But there's no way the Bengals let him walk while they have Burrow and Chase all in their prime. Maybe one more good year out of Joe Mixon. Like this is the final year probably with this core for a Super Bowl push. They're going to tag him, and I predict
I think they'll tag him because the reality is what you said about Jamar is a good point. However, if I'm Jamar, I'm not signing anything until Justin Jefferson gets signed. Because Justin Jefferson is going to sign a big contract.
He's
going to reset the market. And we all know what Jamar Chase can do when he's on the field. T. Higgins, it's so interesting because he's a true X receiver. He's a jump ball guy. He can win the one-on-ones, put him on the outside. A lot of teams need someone like that, especially as we're seeing a lot of these smaller guys come into the league. So I think his value is high. I'm surprised I'm surprised that his projected value is only $66.3 million. His yards per route run was 1.66. His average depth of target was 13.1. His yards after the catch was 5.6. The guy can play, but I do think he'll stay in Cincinnati for at least another year. But I think you're right. If we were to see him go somewhere like Houston, Lord have mercy.
That'd be beautiful.
That'd be amazing. I would hate to see him go somewhere like Carolina. Like, do not chase the money.
No. Don't do that.
I think T. Higgins. Okay, number 1, the Bengals they're not letting him go. They're going to tag him and keep him. He's going to play in the franchise tag. The ball is in the court of the teams when you franchise tag the player. There's literally nothing the player can do. Like there's nothing they can do unless So that's 1. Number 2, even if he leaves, and I've said this before. T. Higgins is not a number 1 receiver. He's not. He's not a receiver that will take your team to the next level. For example, if he goes to the Houston, I think Nicole Collins is better than him, and Tank Dell is better than him. Yes, he's a big guy, so they won't have a need for him in Houston. He's a solid top tier receiver number 2, and that's why I'm not surprised. Is people are estimating what his contract would be as that, because obviously they don't see him as a number 1 as well. The one team that you can go and become a true number 1 is New England. Obviously, anybody can be a true number 1 there. There's very few teams you can go to. If he goes to what's it called, Kansas City, I think Rashid Rice might be better than him, to be honest. Except Rashid Rice, he'd probably be a better X. If he goes They're just not. He's not to me. If we try to name off top 10 receivers, T. Higgins doesn't make it there.
I think T. Higgins, he's interesting because I think he's what Mike Williams was supposed to be, like a healthy version of Mike Williams. Like he's an outside.
Healthy version of Mike Williams is dangerous. That's it.
But anyways, what were you going to say, Ross? Did you want to say something? Then we're going to move on to the next guy.
I was going to say, I think best case scenario in my mind is if Caleb Williams is going to hit his ceiling, he gets drafted by Chicago. You get DJ Moore, T. Higgins there. They complement each other really well, and it gives Caleb Williams an ability to hit his ceiling in year one. I think Chicago should overpay, get T. Higgins, and if that means a tag and trade, let Cincy tag him, give that extra first you got, and get T. Higgins. Do it.
So if he goes, I can see T. Higgins being a top. If he goes somewhere and he's paid to be a number one receiver, I do think he's a top 15 receiver in the league.
15. Yeah, 15 is like, but if you're a top 15 receiver, that's not saying much though, to be honest. To be top 15.
We see guys go somewhere and sign somewhere else. Like DJ Moore left Carolina, went to Chicago. Stephon Diggs left Minnesota, went to Buffalo.
Yeah, Diggs is the big
AJ
one.
Brown left Tennessee, went to Philly.
Tyreek Hill
left Kansas City. And you see these free agents when they go somewhere, the team signing them says, we are going to make you that dude. Like, we're going to make you that guy. But you know what? Let's move on because we're talking about a bunch of free agents. So any one of these guys could fall into that category. But Michael Pittman Jr., another 4-year vet, 26 years old, played in 16 games, 109 receptions, 1,152 yards, 4 touchdowns. His projected value is actually greater than that of T. Higgins. His projected value is 4 years at $90.8 million. That's a lot of money. That is a lot of money. What are you guys' thoughts on Michael Pittman Jr.? Yeah, Shed.
So last year, he was wide receiver number 14. Surprisingly. I mean, he had a good year. He had a quiet good year last year, right? I mean, he produced a lot. I was thinking that if the Chargers are willing to do it, because they're going to move off of Mike Williams, right? They need to move off of Mike Williams and replace – and Quentin Johnson ain't the guy.
He's terrible.
Keenan Allen's getting older. So this would be a great opportunity for them to bring in Pittman Jr. He would be a great fit under Harbaugh, with Herbert. This would be a good landing spot for him to go. They need somebody for the future. He's a young guy, and he can replace Quentin Johnson, who isn't producing. So I see San Diego or LA Chargers making that move, and this being a good spot for him to land.
I don't know how the Chargers could afford to bring anybody in. They are currently over the cap by $45 million. So to think of them making a splash for a guy like Michael Pittman Jr., whose projected value is 4 years for $90 million, I don't see that happening. They're going to have to cut one of their receivers just to be able to play football next year. So
that's why they're connected to so many people in draft early, because they're drafting them rather than paying them.
And the interesting thing about Michael Pittman is his average depth of target is 7.9 yards. So he's a big guy, but he's used close to the line of scrimmage. I don't know if that's because of the poor quarterback play he's played with for the last 3 years, but I could see Indianapolis paying him. I mean, the reality is you got Anthony Richardson on a rookie deal. You want to get the guy a receiver, and why not keep a guy who was already there? Pay the man,
That's what they should do, because you're not going to go into this season with Alec Pierce and Josh Downs as your two guys. And they don't have a first rounder early enough to get one of these top 3 or 4 guys. I have one though for Michael Pittman. What about the Lions?
No.
Tons of cap space. They have been shown to be very aggressive in the offseason. I could absolutely see them making a play.
Why would the Lions
for Michael
do
Pittman?
That?
Because they don't have a second receiver. It's not going to be Josh Reynolds. It's not Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams.
Jameson Williams he's great down the field, but Amon-Ra St. Brown is that mid-range guy.
I don't think I don't think the
Jamison
line.
Williams is not
No, he's
a
not that guy, but
reliable
he's the guy that's
receiver.
stretching the field. But Amon-Ra is great for mid-range. I don't think
Yeah, they already got two pass catchers with Laporta and St. Brown. I
And
don't know
Laporta.
if they'll spend.
And it still wasn't enough.
Well,
enough. The Lions, their moment is right now. Okay, all of these rookie contracts on both sides of the ball. This is their moment. They have the cap space. I could absolutely see them being aggressive for a top-tier wide receiver. Yes, no doubt about it.
A good landing spot for Micah Pittman is actually the Patriots. Actually, a good landing spot for him, especially the way he
If
plays.
they get Jaden Daniels, you're predicting at quarterback.
Yeah, and also I feel like Pittman is also on the same level as I put Higgins. I cannot unsee when he was playing the Bucks and he was downfield 1-on-1, 50-50 jump ball with Antoine Winfield, who's only 5'9", and Antoine Winfield won the 50-50 jump ball over a 6'4" Pittman. So for me, I was like, I can't unsee that. But he's a solid receiver in the league,
He is.
nonetheless. Solid receiver, and he will move the chains. He'll be a really good player on a team that can utilize his skill set, especially if he's a number 2. Even better for him.
Let's keep it going. These next 3 guys are very interesting. Mike Williams, 30-year-old.
Mike Evans.
What's that?
Evans.
Mike Evans, sorry. Mike Evans, 30-year-old receiver, 10-year vet.
Russ.
Now, we all know
Russ,
how incredible it's been that he has gotten 1,000 yards every season. Last season, 17 games, 79 receptions, 1,255 yards, 13 touchdowns. His projected value is a 4-year, $96.3 million. You might be thinking to yourself, that's absurd. He's 30 years old. But we literally just saw Devontae Adams do pretty much the same thing just last year when he signed with Las Vegas. But go ahead, Ross. You want to jump in first?
Yeah, I was going to say, I honestly think that Tampa Bay ought to cut Chris Godwin because he actually has a contract out this year that you could take advantage of. And I think Mike Evans is the one who stirs the drink there. You don't want to let Mike Evans go, although I think they will. If they do, Mike Evans is a perfect complement to what the Kansas City Chiefs have going on with Rashee Rice and with Travis Kelce aging a little bit. You bring in him, you draft a receiver, and you have a nice receiver room that's dependable, reliable. Maybe that 10% drop rate that we were having, maybe that drops a little bit. Now, I don't think the league will let this happen, but I can dream about it.
Hey, if the league let Philadelphia create a dream team back in 2011, this is why we have a salary cap. Olu, what do you want to say, man? You're a Mike Evans fan.
So in terms of drop rate, Mike Evans was dropping the ball a lot, just saying that. But in terms of going to Kansas City, my Lord, Mahomes might score 60 touchdowns with Mike Evans. Once they get to the red zone, they're going to score. Like he will score 60 touchdowns with Mike Evans. So I hope he doesn't go there. I definitely could see Mike Evans being an amazing addition with the Texans. He will be like the veteran in the room of the young pass catchers and the safety blanket of, I think he really will fit with just the play style of C.J. Stroud. C.J. Stroud loves to go deep. He loves to, he's very accurate with that as well. So I think he'll be a really, really good addition. But the Tampa Bay would be silly to let him out that building.
Even at 30 years old, his average depth of target was 14.5 yards.
Yeah.
That's pretty solid for a 10-year vet.
Mm-hmm.
Now, his yards after the catch were only 3.5, though. So
he's
pretty much catching the ball and falling down. But imagine him somewhere like Chicago with DJ Moore. He would complement DJ Moore very well, I think, because DJ Moore likes to go down the field, get yards after the catch. Mike Evans catches the ball, pretty much falls down. But, I mean, I think that could be nasty. But I think staying in Tampa would be ideal, especially if they re-sign Baker. Yeah, Mike Evans, he's had an illustrious career. Historic. Let's move on to the next guy. Hollywood Brown, 26 years old, 5-year veteran. This past season, he played 14 games, 51 yards, 574 yards, 4 touchdowns. His projected value is a 4-year, $59.5 million contract. Obviously, he did not live up to the expectations that Arizona had for him, but a lot of that could also be because Kyler Murray, his college teammate, was injured. What do you guys think about Hollywood Brown going into next season? Obviously, he's an ex-receiver, but he's very small. At the same time, I think he's like 5'9", 180. Shed.
So here's and Will, and I need you to look this up. Buffalo's cap space. Buffalo could be an interesting place because Diggs and the Bills and Josh Allen, something was up this year. I don't know if he comes back. I don't know the salary issue, right? But they can sign Hollywood cheap for a decent wide receiver and get good production out of him. So Buffalo, I'm not sure if they'll land Hollywood, but Buffalo needs a wide receiver. We'll need a wide receiver going into this year. So one of these guys have to land there. Hollywood seemed like he'd be a good, non-expensive, upside type of guy that could potentially not replace Diggs, but could be just somebody else for Josh Allen to throw the ball to.
So the Bills are $43 million in the red.
Okay,
that's gonna be tough to do.
So
yeah,
Bill probably not.
I think the Bills may take a receiver in the first round, like Keon Coleman out of Florida State, who's 6'4". They've never had a tall receiver with Allen. They've had all like 6 foot or less guys. I think Arizona should bring him back and then take Marvin Harrison at 4 because Kyler has trust with Hollywood.
Right.
They played together in college.
Right.
And then you get your 6'4", generational receiver at the 4th draft slot. That's going to be a beautiful thing. That would be a great offense to watch.
Yeah, and Hollywood is not.
Yeah, I think
what's wild is like he's actually not bad. Like he's better. He's football good. He's not the best fantasy, but he's a solid receiver. I think they should bring him back, to be honest. I agree with Will. But let's move on to this last guy. Probably one of the most interesting people is Calvin Ridley. He is a 29-year-old receiver finishing out his rookie contract. When in the world does that happen? It's because he came in the league older. He took a year off. Then he was suspended. This past season, 17 games, 76 yards, 76 receptions, 1,016 yards, 8 touchdowns. His projected value, 4 years, $68.2 million. Olu, you want to weigh in first?
Yeah, I think Calvin Ridley has all the talents in the world. He's one of the best route runner, in the league currently. Like he is. The one thing Calvin Ridley really needs to be a top 5, he could easily be a top 5 receiver in this league, is discipline. He needs focus and discipline. And I think that's what's really keeping him from where he ought to be. He needs a team that can really give him that. I can see him really doing good with Matt Stafford in LA. Puka, Calvin, Matt Stafford, and Cooper Kupp. That would be ultra dangerous team. Oh my gosh, can you guys even imagine that? That would be dangerous. So I feel like, and that team, and McVay can keep him on point, keep him focused. Yeah, I think that's really, and if he does that, he will easily be a top 5 NFL wide receiver.
You said he has to stay disciplined. I would say he just needs to stay off FanDuel and DraftKings, to be honest, but he's like exactly what I meant. Does anyone else want to say anything about Calvin Ridley at all?
Yeah, I'll jump in real fast. The age is certainly worrying. More worrying than that is how he disappears on the field for stretches of time. He was dominant early, and then Christian Kirk reasserted himself as the alpha there for some reason. When Calvin Ridley is the more talented receiver by far, and he's an illusionist. He just disappears too often for me.
Like, imagine him with the Lions, Will. What about that?
That'd be beautiful. The Lions need a second receiver. Laporta is gonna be great, but they need a second reliable receiver. So if it's Ridley or if it's even Pittman, they're gonna be aggressive. This is their window right now. They don't wanna waste it.
The Lions' top three needs are defense. They could get a receiver, but I think draft and free agency will go defense.
It's
You
going to
know
be an
what?
exciting offseason. We're going to see what happens with these 5 guys and many more receivers. But in our next recording, we'll probably talk about running backs. There's lots of free agent running backs out there.
Yeah,
That will
yeah,
be a
yeah.
very interesting one. But we'll see.
Oh, but
What's
real
that,
quick,
Olu?
let me say something about the Chargers real quick. So you guys know Chargers have the fifth overall pick, and some analysts are having them projecting them to pick either Malik Neighbors, which makes a lot of sense, or Brock Bowers. Even I mean, regardless, either of those guys would be lethal on that offense.
Yeah, and as we approach the draft, we'll talk about predictions for that as well. So we'll definitely have more airtime for that in the upcoming months. But last segment of the day, and let's try to keep this one relatively quick, guys. Way too early bold predictions. This won't be the first time that we do this. We'll do this after the first round of free agency. We'll do this after the draft. But obviously, with what we have right now, let's talk about some bold predictions. Make your claim, state your case, put your foot down, say it with your chest. Ross, why don't you go first, man?
Stand on business. Stand on business.
Let's talk about Michigan State product Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed had himself a year. He didn't have a lot of love coming into the year. A lot of draft analysts were low on him. He was a 4-year player, so there wasn't a lot of love for Jaden Reed. He went into that Packers offense and quickly established himself. My bold prediction is that Jaden Reed finishes top 15 in fantasy scoring and ahead of Tank Dell. When I look at Jalen Reed, I see what I would call discount Debo.
Ooh.
He's
Yeah.
smaller. He gets those touches. He gets those rushes. And he separates. He gives me just a little sprinkle of Steph Diggs. It's a lot of praise for a young player. I think he's going to be the Packers' number 1 receiver next
I love
year.
guys like that. Debo, I used to like Anquan Bolden for reasons like that. He was just tough, man. He's a running back when he gets the ball. Shed. Way too early bold.
So yeah, so mine's going to be more encompassing. I'll make this quick, but I would say next year, after your top 2 quarterback are picked, don't pick a quarterback until probably in the 8th or 9th round. Devalue the position until later rounds. There's too many options nowadays out there. Quarterbacks are all relatively fantasy good, right? You have your top 15 from Lamar to Allen to Hurts to Fields to Herbert to Goff, Purdy, Dak, Stafford, Cousin, Tua, Rodgers, Burrow. After your top 2, after an Allen, a Lamar, maybe a Hurts, wait until later on to grab a quarterback because quarterbacks are so deep and you can fill your roster first with other positions and then grab a quarterback later on.
And that's a great piece of advice. I have ascribed to pretty much drafting only quarterbacks with rushing upside at this point because I feel like that is just the upside when it comes to fantasy football. Say what you want to say about Josh Allen's quarterback turnovers, but he will be the number 1 quarterback in fantasy football next year. Like, I don't care. Say what you say about
Right.
Jalen Hurts, but as long as the tush push is legal, he will be in the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks because quarterbacks with rushing upside, they score extra points. Simply put.
And actually number 16 roster reminded me of this Kyler Murray too. Kyler Murray's a good fantasy. He's a good fantasy quarterback. Everybody they don't like him, but he gives you 20 to 25 points week in, week out. Like it or not, those are numbers.
Justin Fields. He'll give you fantasy
That's right.
points. Olu, what is your way too early bold prediction?
So my way to early bold prediction will be Tank Dell will be a top 10 receiver. Tank Dell was on pace this year to be a top 10 receiver until top 5 actually, or whatever, until he broke his leg. I think next year I've already been following him. I've been following his rehab journey. He's really working hard. His mindset, he's ready to jump in the lab work and really he said we've not seen anything yet. So I take him at his word. The young man's hungry.
So would you take him in the first? So you would take him in the first 2 rounds of a fantasy draft?
Of a what?
Of a fantasy draft, of a
Of
redraft fantasy league next year. You would take him.
first two, because the reason is that because I mean, if I can get McCaffrey or because my strategy is I go with running backs first. That's why.
Gotcha. Yeah, in a non PPR league, yes. Will, bold prediction for 2024.
Here's my bold prediction at the running back position. Kendre Miller of the New Orleans Saints going into his second year will be a top 15 running back in PPR. And I'm going to tell you why. The Saints are in salary cap Hades, okay? $83 million in the red. They can't bring Kamara back. He's also about to be 29 years old. He's not under contract. Jamal Williams was a one-year contract, so he's gone. Kendre Miller is the de facto RB1 in New Orleans, a team that has produced top-tier running backs in fantasy for years now, going back to Kamara's prime, even Mark Ingram. They have a good system to capitalize on these running backs. And Kendre Miller, last year we didn't get to see him. He was hurt, battling injuries throughout the year. It was in some ways kind of a lost season for the Saints. They were not performing at what you would normally expect as a Saints fan. And going back to his last year in college, 1,400 rushing yards, 17 touchdowns. He's got passing game chops as well, receiving chops. He's going to be top 15 in PPR. Cannot wait to see this man as the RB1 on a Saints team that knows how to capitalize on their running backs.
Yeah, if he's catching the ball half as good as Alvin Kamara, book it. You know, my bold prediction, my way too early bold prediction as I choke and die over here with this cough, is that jump on the bandwagon now, guys, because Jackson Smith-Njigba is going to finish the season as a top 15 receiver. You might think top 15 receiver, that doesn't sound too bold. Listen, I'm going to tell you something. I want to say top 10, but I don't want to get crucified for this. Seattle, he was drafted. He has a draft capital. The landing spot wasn't that great. He's stuck behind Lockett and Metcalf when it comes to targets. But Seattle has a potential out this season with Tyler Lockett. He has 2 more years on contract, but if he's designated a June 1st cut, then that $19 million can be spread across this year and next year, leaving the Seattle Seahawks with a savings of almost $18 million on the cap overall. So the reality is they can get out of Tyler Lockett's contract and then elevate JSN's role. And let's not forget, just 2 seasons ago at Ohio State, the only season he played a full season at Ohio State, the man had 95 catches for 1,600 yards. That's a school record for Ohio State, who has had many great receivers come through. Matter of fact, his sophomore year, Jackson Smith-Njigba outperformed Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave in the same offense as a true sophomore. Olave was a senior, Wilson was a junior, Jackson Smith-Njigba was a sophomore, and he outperformed each of them. Now, they have a new coach coming in, Mike Macdonald. You might be wondering, who's this guy? Mike Macdonald, he was a defensive coordinator for the Baltimore Ravens. You might say, defensive coach. Yes, but you know where he went to school? The University of Georgia. He actually went to school when I was there, believe it or not. And this is what's crazy. He was a head coach of a high school football team where I used to play pickup football every single Saturday. Cedar Shoals High School, shout out. But I think, and Mike Macdonald's the youngest coach in the league. I think he's going to utilize Jackson Smith-Njigba. Why not? Why not? The guy has the draft capital. He obviously has the talent. I think Jackson Smith-Njigba will finish the year 2024 as a top 15 receiver in the league. But those are our bold predictions. Guys, do we want to say anything else before we log off and say goodbye? Any other thoughts? Because we didn't get to respond to anybody's bold takes, but anything we'd like to say?
Running back, honorable mention, bold prediction, Tajay Spears. Tajay Spears next year, I think the floor is open for him. He has all the opportunity next year. I think that you see more out of Tajay Spears next year in that Titans offense.
I'd love to see
on,
it.
Phil.
That's if the bones in his knees don't grind to dust because the man has no ligaments.
Isn't that what Jay
It's not a
Ajayi
joke.
had?
He's a coper, man. He's a coper.
Wasn't that what Jay Ajayi had? You guys remember him?
I do.
Yeah, I remember Jay. Of course, I know Jay Ajayi.
A giant.
Olu's like, that's my cousin. Of course I remember him. But anyways, that's our episode for the day. Ross Sawyer, it was great having you join us.
Yes, sir.
Complete spread offense.
Great to be with you
My
guys.
brother will have you back. We're going to keep this rolling over the offseason as we prepare for free agency and the draft. 4 Wide Fantasy Football Podcast. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe with your host, Shed, Olu, Will, Ross, and Matt. We will see you later.
Peace.